In this video I'm going to show you how I made these standing wooden lights. I made a set of two that go nice alongside my TV. They are made with cheap LED strips. They are dimmable and controllable with any home automation system. I won't go into details about the software part of the build in this video. I will make a separate video for that. Now, I know a little bit about electronics, but this was my first ever woodworking project. I made plenty of mistakes and I will show them to you in this video. I made this about 1.5 years ago and I learned a lot since then. And in the end I am content with the end result, but I already have plenty of ideas for an improved version. So keep watching this space if you are interested in that. Okay, here we are. Mistake number 1. I used this large block of plywood as the building material. The reason why is because I didn't know any better. I just picked a piece of wood that matched the size that I needed. The lamp is made out of wooden blocks of plywood, but next time I would just make a hollow box, made out of either 12mm plywood or MDF. I measured square blocks and started cutting using a circular saw. A handsaw will work, but it will be very tedious. I used a sanding machine to sand all the blocks smooth. After that, I started cutting some of the blocks into smaller pieces. These will be the corners where the acrylic or plexiglass will go. The smaller pieces must be cut by hand. I didn't have a miter saw when I built this, but that would probably help a lot here. After some more sanding, I started to drill large holes in the center of each block. This is where the LED strips would be threaded through. And yes, I know that is not a real chisel. The second mistake that I made was drilling a hole in the top blocks as well. I fixed that by just making the lights taller than I originally planned, so I cut 2 extra blocks for that as well. Now it was time for the first glue up. This actually went pretty well, mainly because I watched hours of YouTube footage on how to glue pieces of wood together. As the glue dried, I started to work on the electronics. The lights are controlled with an Arduino Uno and a small Ethernet controller module. Here I am using a tiny piece of LED strip to test my setup. I like to use wired network while I can, and since I have a network switch behind the TV, it was the choice for me. You can definitely go with something wireless if you want. You can use an ESP12 or something like that. Time to do some soldering. I still do mess up a bit sometimes here as well, but it's no big deal. I power the project with this old laptop power supply. The reason for this is that they can be found very cheap second-hand and they are pretty powerful. I bought this one for only €5. Now I'm making room for the electronics in the bottom block of one of the lamps. I did a very messy job here and I would totally do it different next time. And yes, I got a real chisel in the meantime. Here I am drilling a hole in the bottom block for the second lamp to thread the wire through. Time to continue with the glue up. The smaller blocks are not cut very straight, which I thought is not a problem as long as the straight side is on the outside. Later you will see why I was wrong. I carefully lined up the corners and waited a minute or so before applying the clamps. Here I am about to make another mistake. Can you see my brain working? God, this is so embarrassing. It was fixed easily, and not long after that I have 2 finished glue ups. Could be a lot worse. While that was drying, I started with the acrylic, or plexiglass as we like to call it here. I cut small strips that would fit in the gaps of the wood. Later I sanded each strip to make it opaque, but next time I would just sand the whole plate first. I didn't because I wanted to leave the protective plastic on. Next time I will put on some painter's tape after sanding. When the glue is dry, it is time to apply some finish. I chose a dark oak colored stain. I think I applied 3 coats, don't ask me why, I think I read it somewhere. It came out very dark because of this, but it's not too bad. I also used the wrong brush. It would have been better just to wipe this on with some rags. After the finish is dry, it is time to put it all together. First I threaded the LED strip through and used hot glue to loosely glue it in place in several random places. You know, to give the light some character. The power supply I'm using is 20 volts. So I powered the 2 lights in series, basically giving them 10 volts each, which is plenty for my application. If you want a full 12 volts for the strips, you need a 12 volt power supply or a 24 volt power supply and power them in series just like I did. Then I started to put the plexiglass strips in. This was a real horror story. Many of the pieces didn't fit, and I ended up buying a belt sander to sand the pieces down to size. It was pretty messy, but it worked out in the end. I used hot glue to attach the pieces of plexiglass to the base. After a few hours of tedious sanding, it was all done. Again, I'm going to make a better version, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and I will see you next time.